everyone. Welcome to another amazing guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I'm excited for the topic of today's episode. Personal development, time management, those are things that we talk about a lot, but do we actually execute on them? How good are we at those things? And I'm excited to have somebody who's an expert in that space to come and have a conversation with us and see if we can tame this beast once and for all. Our guest today is Anna Dearmon Kornick, and she's a time management coach and author of Time Management Essentials. Let's see. She helps busy professionals and business owners master time management so they can stop feeling overwhelmed and start spending time on what matters most. Her weekly podcast, It's About Time, shares stories and strategies to inspire women seeking better work-life balance. Anna is the author of Time Management Essentials, the tools you need to maximize your attention, energy, and productivity. And we will link up all of her social stuff in our show notes. So if you look in your podcast player, in the description, you'll see all in the resources section. We give you all the links that we discussed today. You can also find them at profitwithlaw.com. So Anna, welcome to the show.
Moshe, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. And I've got to say, as a time management coach, hearing that you're excited to dive into this topic makes my heart sing. Let's do it.
All right. Awesome. So first things first, I was checking your podcast out. So folks, as a podcaster, we always want to show the love to other people, because if you're listening to me, then chances are you listen to other shows. Check out It's About Time. She's got 164 ratings, average 4.8. Looks like she's putting out an episode every single week consistently, which is the key to success, consistency, and requires time management to do that consistently. And I have not listened to the show, but I'm sure after today, I'm gonna tune in myself. So I invite you to go and listen to It's About Time, Time Management and Productivity for Work-Life Balance. We will link that up for you in the show notes at profitwithlaw.com. And I gave you the cliff notes, the pre-scripted bio. I can read from a page. Our audience wants to know who you are. They want to know what makes you tick. They want to know who you are as an individual, as a human being. Can you give us a little bit of the broad strokes of your background and how you ended up in this space?
Sure. Well, it's important for you to know that I was not born some kind of magical time management unicorn that just happens to be naturally good at time management. Everything that I now speak about and share with others is what I've learned through making more mistakes than you can imagine. But I actually started my career in Washington, D.C. as the scheduler to a United States congressman, where my job was to schedule every single minute of my boss's day from the time he woke up in the morning until he called it a night. And so I was a brand new young professional thrown into not only trying to navigate time management for myself, but also I was managing one of the most hectic schedules in the country. And as much as I loved the hustle and bustle of DC, so I'm from Louisiana. I'm a Louisiana girl through and through. And one thing you might know about Louisiana is that our food is pretty unique and cannot be duplicated anywhere else. And so living in DC, I really started to miss home, and I missed the culture of Louisiana and my family. So I moved home, where I started a 10-year career in the 24/7 world of crisis communications and government affairs, where literally every single day on the job was a disaster of some sort. I worked on the BP oil spill. I covered hurricanes and earthquakes and oil spills and tornadoes and droughts and floods and nonprofit embezzlement schemes and universities on the brink of financial collapse. And as I loved it and I was good at it, because creating order out of crisis was my thing. And as you can imagine, being on for people, for clients, when they're in their darkest moments, can really begin to take a toll on you. And so suddenly my boundaries were gone. My health was deteriorating. My relationships were crumbling. It was all in all not a good situation. And I looked up and I realized that this is not the life that I wanted for myself. And so I walked away from what many people would consider a cool job in search of something else, because I realized that along the way, I had become that crisis that needed to be managed. And so it was time for me to take care of me. And so I dove into every time management, productivity book, goal setting, vision setting, podcast, the whole 9 yards, trying to figure out, is it possible for me to take this weird time management experience that I had gotten so early in my career, combine it with my love of communicating, and then somehow use that to help others either dig themselves out of that place of burnout that I had found myself in, or help them avoid it altogether. And so after a lot of trial and error and figuring things out, now I'm a time management coach and I get to help people do exactly that every single day.
Awesome. And I love your energy and your story. But before we dive into talking about time management, which is presumably what we're going to talk about for the bulk of our time together, it sounds like your solution to your chaotic situation, the what you were doing when you were back home in Louisiana, it sounds like your solution to that was to leave and find something else. And my question is that the solution for most people, or do we believe that no matter what your situation is, you can make it better?
I think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Everyone's situation is unique. And I would never advocate, hey, just quit your job if it's bad. There's a lot that went into making the decision to walk away from that career and step into what was actually stepping into the freelance world, stepping into making a lot of heading off in a lot of different directions to see what fit. For a while, I was actually working at an advertising firm. For a while, I managed a political campaign. For a while, I thought I wanted to be a lobbyist. And so it was searching and trying to figure out which of those different paths was the right one for me. But I'll also say that, one of the biggest responses I get when I hear from people that they have trouble managing their time or that they're not happy is that they believe that they're not in control of their time. But I don't have control of my time. And I always say, you have more control than you think. You do have the power to change your circumstances. You are not a tree. You can move. You can change your location. It might be difficult. It might not happen overnight and it might not be easy, but it is absolutely possible to figure out, to create the plan and to dramatically change your life if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I love this concept that, each situation is unique, each person is individualized, and you're not encouraging people to quit their job, but at the same time, we look at your journey and you tried a bunch of different things before you settled on the one that you're doing now. And my question to you is how do you know this is it? And this is not just another one of those things that, like, okay, I tried this, I had fun, and now I'm going to move on to the next thing.
That question that a lot of people ask as a get to know you question or an icebreaker question. And it goes something along the lines of, if you could have any other job than the job that you have now, or if you won the lottery and you didn't have to work anymore, what would you do? I would do this. I cannot imagine having any other job or responsibility or passion. There's nothing else. If I were to win the lottery, I would still do this work. This is exactly what I would be doing. And so I have such confidence that I am doing exactly what I am meant to be doing. And I wish everyone could have that.
Awesome. Love that. All right, let's talk about time management, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. This podcast called Profit with Law, right? Our listeners, by and large, law firm owners or lawyers. Some of them are billing by the hour, billing in 6-minute increments, potentially. But often there's other challenges along the way. Like they're a business owner too, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate at working on the business versus working in the business. They're trying to figure out how to be the HR person, be the CEO, be the sales and marketing, be the accounts receivable and accounts payable, and at the same time also be doing legal work. Where do you think that people get lost when it comes to time management? Like, especially with all those things, like where do you think the biggest mistake is that's creating the biggest leak in their productivity?
Sure. That's a great question. And I've seen friends in that exact role who are practicing while also running the business. And it's in trying to wear every single one of those hats every day that the efficiency is lost, that we begin to feel scatterbrained and all over the place, and like we're not making visible progress in any one area. And it's because we're trying to be all of the roles every day. And so what we're doing effectively by starting the day in business planning mode and then switching to CFO mode and then switching to practice mode and then switching to HR mode is that we're engaged in context switching. We are dramatically changing our mode of thinking constantly all throughout the day when you flip-flop back and forth between those different roles. And every single time we shift our focus, we experience something that's called attention residue. And it always sounds icky, the phrase attention residue, but essentially it's the concept that whenever we switch from thinking about thing A to thing B, even though we're now concentrating on thing B, part of our brain is still ruminating and focusing on thing A. And so we're not able to give our full focus whenever we're switching so often. It takes around, I think, 27 minutes to regain our level of concentration every time we're distracted or every time we switch what we're doing. And so we're losing productivity, we're losing effectiveness every time we switch. So what's the solution? How do we still be effective in all of these roles without being in those roles every single day?
So before we get to the solution, context switching is one of the problems, right? And I'm familiar with context switching, but perhaps we can dive into what that means a little bit more. But are there other challenges that come up in time management that when we present a solution, we can solve those challenges as well?
And what exactly could you
So, okay, so you laid out this idea that, hey, if I'm switching from one thing to the next, then I have context switching, which creates this leakage. It creates this, what was the terminology you used?
Ineffective attention residue.
Yes, attention residue. But what are some other things that I might be doing that are creating leakage in other ways? In other words, context switching is not the only thing, right? Like, what if I'm not calendaring? What if I'm just uncertain about what I should be doing next? There are other challenges when it comes to time management that can be solved. What are some other things that you're finding when you're working with clients?
Definitely. So some other things that I see are just ineffective organization, keeping a to-do list on a legal pad versus using a digital task management system. David Allen, the creator of Getting Things Done, has said that our brains are meant for having ideas, not holding them. And so every time we're trying to operate from our memory with our list of things to do, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So not utilizing a digital task management system, not delegating things that could be delegated. So often we feel like we are the only person who can do certain tasks, when in reality, so much more than we realize can be delegated. But it's not always something that we can just hand off, and it might require a little bit effort to set someone else up for success. And so we end up saying, well, it'll just be faster if I do it. And we end up losing that time when we could be delegating. So I'd say context switching from trying to wear too many hats in one day. I would say just an ineffective task management system, which rolls into having an ineffective calendaring system. If you are a business owner and an attorney, it's time to move away from using a paper planner. So if you are not digital with your calendaring, it's time to go there. If you're not using a scheduling tool to book appointments, it's time to try that out. And then none of those things, even if you streamline the roles and move away from context switching, even if you have an amazing task management system and you're delegating, but you don't have a clear understanding of your vision for the future or your priorities, none of those other things are going to work. Because if you don't have a clear vision for the future and know where you want to go, where you want to grow, then knowing what the most important thing is at any moment is going to be nearly impossible. You're always going to feel like you're guessing and just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah, very, very true. I want to go back to the to-do list that you mentioned. And I'm trying to remember where I had this conversation or what book I read it in. But we tend to maintain this to-do list, whether it's in our head or whether it's in a task management system or whatever it is, of 100, 1,000 things that we need to do, that if we are true to ourselves, we're never going to actually get to all those items. Like, there's literally some of them that we will never do. Yet we keep it on our to-do list. How effective is it in having such a list? And is there a better system than that to identify what are the most important items that we're actually realistically can get done, and kind of abandon that list and just have this shorter, more realistic thing? What is that something that you work on with your clients? And what are your thoughts on that?
It is. And whenever I am getting to know new clients and we're starting to uncover what their current to-do and task management system looks like, which I use the word system loosely because it's come in the form of stacks of Post-it notes to Google Docs, and it's just all over the place. And typically what I see is people who have one super long list that is filled with things that they need to do today, next week, next year, things that they might want to do someday, and like a restaurant that they want to visit if they happen to visit Italy one day. And all of these different to-do lists and ideas are living in one place. And so early on, for someone like that, we'd separate the list into two different pieces, into two different separate lists. We call it our to-do list and our today list. And this is one of the most basic ways to really begin breaking down what needs to be done today versus what needs to be done at some point. And so you can call that to-do list your brain dump list or your mind sweep list, or all of the things that need to be done that have hit your mind. But your today list is just 5 to 7, maybe 15 things that you want to knock out today. And that helps you clarify and really focus in on what's possible today. And then I recommend taking it a step further and taking the items on that today list and then time blocking them in your digital calendar so that you have an accurate reflection of, this is how I'm going to spend my time doing each of these items, to see if these 7 items are actually or even realistic to accomplish today. We overestimate so often what we can do in a day, and we would end our days feeling so much more accomplished if we were to just drastically decrease the size of our lists.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for that. So we set this problem up where we are doing a lot of context switching. We have a lot of things that we're keeping in our head because we don't have it written down, or we don't have it and we don't have an electronic system for it. We have ineffective task management. So what is somebody to do to solve this problem, and what's possible for them if they solve that problem?
So what does someone do to solve this problem? Because we've got a lot of different problems that are all commingling together and that are all creating this time management mess. So which one do we attack first? Well, that answer is going to be different for everyone. And that's why, I always say that time management is not a one size fits all thing, as much as so many people would love for us to believe that we can just copy and paste, just time block and you'll be fine. Well, that's not really how it works. So this is where I would direct someone to the focusing question. Gary Keller and Jay Papasan wrote a book called The One Thing. And in this book, The One Thing, they talk about the focusing question, which goes something like this. What is the one thing such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And so if you take that question, what's the one thing that I can do that's going to make everything else feel just a little bit easier? And then you apply that to all of these different messy problems, the calendar, the to-do list, the need to delegate, the wearing the different hats. And you ask yourself, okay, which one of these, if I solve it first, will make solving the rest of them easier? And maybe you realize that if you start by delegating a few things, it will free up your time so you can wear fewer hats. Or if you start by getting your calendar organized, you might realize that you have time available to get your task management system in order. But it's going to be unique to the level of what's on fire in everyone's different problems within the time management mess.
Now, how realistic is it for somebody to solve the context switching problem? We're in an example of it right now. So I batch record podcasts. I'm spending the entire day recording podcast episodes. We're doing 6 of them today. The reason I do that is context switching, because if I just had a podcast here, a podcast there, which I used to do, then it wouldn't take the 45 minutes of the interview. It would take probably 2.5 hours to get ready to record, to be in the right moment, to have the desk set up right, to have the studio set up right, to make sure I'm looking good, to then wrap my head around what I'm going to be talking about, forget about everything else. And then when I'm done, now I need to get back into, I'm in the middle of preparing a client's tax return, or I have a coaching call with a client, or, whatever the next thing is. And that's very disruptive and really was highly inefficient. But when it comes to some of the things that we do, we feel like we have less control over whether we can or cannot do it in that way. So how should somebody go about trying to implement a strategy to reduce context switching?
So my first recommendation for someone who is struggling with context switching would be to encourage them to create a list of the different roles that they're playing right now, the different roles, the different responsibilities. Because a lot of times when we start there, we're able to think of, okay, well, I'm wearing my business owner hat when I do this. I am wearing my attorney hat when I do this. I'm wearing my CFO hat when I do this. And so you're able to gather patterns and group similar activities together. And the next thing that I would encourage you to consider is a concept that was actually developed by a software developer, and it's called maker time and manager time. And it's this idea that we are at our best for creative, generative work in the morning hours. Whether you are a morning owl or a morning lark or a night owl or somewhere in between, most people truly are at their best in the mornings. And so being a maker in the mornings and doing your work that requires writing or creativity, to take advantage of those early morning energy hours, and then using the afternoons to be a manager, to schedule meetings, to do more administrative style work, regardless of which role it's associated with, to have meetings to check in with your team. We typically have a bit lower energy in the afternoons. And so it's an ideal time to do those more transactional, managerial type activities. So right there, that's one simple way that you can break your day into two different parts, to be a maker in the morning and to be a manager in the afternoon. And you can take this a step further by using the concept of theme days, which is something that I talk about in my book, Time Management Essentials. And this using a theme day doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to spend an entire day doing just one thing. It could, just like today is your podcast recording day. But if you were to think about, okay, what are the different roles that I play? And if I assign each one of those roles its own day of the week, so you know that on Mondays, you bring your marketing mindset to your maker time, and you spend Monday mornings engaged in that business development, engaged in any of your marketing activities. What this does is it gets you in that mindset during a specific time, and it creates consistency, and it helps you set expectations for yourself and for others, because you know that Monday time is designated for marketing, and your team knows that that's what you'll be doing on Mondays. And so you can assign a different role or a different type of work to each day of the week. And of course, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to shift gears when you need to. We all need to adapt and be flexible, but it gives you a framework, and it gives you a baseline to go back to whenever you need to ground yourself in that consistent work.
Yeah, I love that, both of those ideas really. Just splitting your day between the maker and the manager, as well as having theme days. Really good ideas there to kind of get out of context switching and be more effective and productive with your time. So far we discussed the concept of getting more organized, calendaring, going electronic, not having things on paper, as well as having theme days and stuff like that. What are some other things that our audience can think about implementing to help them be more productive?
Mm-hmm. You know, so often when we think about time management, we picture a watch or we picture a calendar, because we think of time management typically in just the way that we manage our minutes and our hours during the week that's ahead of us. But when it really comes down to it, making decisions about how you'll spend your time on a minute by minute, hour by hour basis, all of that is made so much easier when you have a clear vision for the future, when you know what you want your life to look like in the next year to 5 years. And a lot of times we don't think about vision casting as a time management tool or a time management strategy. But the point of time management is to make intentional decisions about how you spend your time. How we spend our time is how we spend our life. And so if you're sitting and you're listening right now and you're thinking, I don't really know what I want my life to look like in the next year, 2 years, that's where you start, is getting really clear on what you want your life to look like, because everything cascades from that. Your vision influences your priorities, what things are most important to you, and that influences how you arrange your days. So I would say to absolutely start with a vision.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really so true. Like one of the things that we do here at Profit with Law with our elite coaching program and our law firm owners that are in it is we look at the vision and what they want to do with the business, and then turn that into specific projects that need to get completed in order to make that vision come to fruition. What we then do is prioritize those projects and just choose 1 or 2 main projects that they're going to work on over the course of 90 days. We then take that project, break it down into pieces. So maybe it's broken down by month or whatever, just chunks of pieces that can get done. Ultimately, the goal is to get it down to a weekly schedule or a daily schedule that they're going to do project work. And what's interesting is that I encourage them to do their project work first. So when they come in the office, before they get lost in the email responses and the client due dates and all that stuff, do the project work first. It's 30 to 60 minutes is all that's needed every day to consistently put in to complete a project. And it's interesting because you laid out this maker concept, and I was thinking when you were laying it out, like, what is the project that they're working on, maker or manager? And the truth is that pretty much any project you're working on to improve your business really is on the maker side, even if it's setting you up to be a manager. Like, even if you're creating a system of KPIs, well, monitoring the KPIs is manager, but creating the system for KPIs is maker. So it really goes together that both of these concepts that you shared, that you want to be clear on your vision and you want to execute on that vision, which is going to help you to make decisions along the way. Because one of the biggest wastes of time is indecision, sitting there trying to figure out, what should I be doing? What should be the next thing? And then on top of that, you can marry that with getting really clear on what are the action steps required to execute on the specific thing that's leading you towards your vision, and making sure you're doing that every day. I really like how all of these things come together, and I think it's a matter of somebody starting to improve the process one thing at a time. I think there's one thing that we didn't talk about with time management really in this conversation. And I have a course that I often give as a bonus when people join various programs of ours. And it's called Get 1 Hour, Reclaim an Hour a Day is the name of the program. So, and the idea is that you can get an hour of time back by following the program. But the underlying concept of it is to delegate. Right? Delegate and automate some of the things that you do. And we didn't really talk about delegation as a time management tool, but I think that it's important for us to cover that. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on it, as far as a solution to the problem. There's a lot of things that people are doing that they really, when we're looking in the context of business ownership or key individual in a company, that they really have no business doing. Where in this process should they be evaluating that and letting go of it?
Definitely. So I think that the moment that you recognize that you are doing things that you should not be doing, and because you feel in conflict, you feel friction there, because either you are doing something that is below your pay grade, or you are spending time doing something that you just find to be completely boring and mind-numbing. This is when I work with clients to uncover what's in their genius zone, looking at passion and proficiency as the indicators of where they should be spending their time. Because those things that we're passionate about, whether it's writing or doing taxes or whatever it is, those things that we're passionate about that we're also good at, that's where we need to spend most of our time. And so identifying those genius zone activities, and then identifying what's not in the genius zone. What are the things that are the best candidates for delegation, for offloading? And looking at those items that can be delegated through two different lenses, or putting them in two different categories. What are the things that can be delegated quickly and easily? And then what are the things that could be delegated with a captured system and process in place? Those things that can be quickly and easily delegated, we want to get those off of our plate first, whether that's hiring a social media manager, having someone, schedule for you, having someone organize your office, whatever it is, get those off your plate. And then identify, so what are these more high impact activities that require a little bit of work before they can be offloaded? These are the things that we hang on to because it's tough to delegate these. But when you have a system for capturing those those processes, whether it's recording yourself, doing a screen record of yourself, talking through yourself, doing the process, capturing the steps next time you conduct that process yourself, making sure that you capture how often should this be done? Is this something that we do weekly, monthly? Do we do it as a result of something else happening? And then just answering any quality assurance questions. How do we know that this is done? Because when you have all of those questions answered, how do we do it? How often should we do it? What questions do we need to ask to make sure it's done well? Then you're going to set yourself up for delegation success and get those higher level, more complex activities off your plate.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I mentioned that, reclaim an hour a day program that I have. And I go through exactly that exercise with, the people who go through it, which is to basically list all the things that they're doing and then grade them in the passion and proficiency, arenas to come up with a score.
Mm-hmm.
So I have them grade on 1 to 5, and then we add those scores together, and then you can rank it by score, and the lowest ranking is the ones that you need to get rid of the first. But creating that list is something that people, have a hard time with. One thing that I found a device called the Timular, which there's been other devices that are available on Amazon, not by Timular, that do a similar thing. Basically, an 8-sided device where you identify a task that you're doing, and you say, okay, this side is, checking email. This side is doing legal work. This side is, answering phones. This side is managing staff. This side is going to the bathroom. And when you're doing any of those tasks, you just move it to that side and it tracks it for you. What are your thoughts about, taking inventory of somebody's time, how they're spending it, and do you have any better ways for them to do that?
Timular is so cool. It really is. I had a client use that in the past whenever we worked together on a time study. So I am a huge advocate of conducting a time study if you've never done that before. And a time study essentially is tracking your time. I know that most of your listeners are probably pros at tracking their time already. I've been there. I had to track my time in 15-minute increments when I worked in the world of crisis PR. But it's tracking your time, whether you track it using a tool such as Toggle. Toggle is great because you can install a widget right on your iPhone screen to quickly click in and update what you're doing. If you want to go pen and paper, if you want to put it in an Excel spreadsheet. But I love seeing the granularity of how people spend their time and the self-awareness that they're able to gain by time tracking, because it's so telling when you see it all on paper. Now, if you want to identify opportunities for delegation and you do not want to track your time, I'm a huge fan of those giant Post-it note pads that trainers and presenters like to use during meetings. And I would just encourage you to grab a giant Post-it note page or white sheets of paper, whatever you've got, put them on the wall where you will walk past it. And every time you catch yourself doing something that you don't want to be doing, write it on the wall. And it's right there. And by the end of a week or the end of 2 weeks, you have a pretty good collection of all of the things that you don't want to be doing.
Yeah, I love that. And this is a great conversation, Anna, and I wish we can go for another hour, but we're at the end of our time together, and I really think that we shared some ideas that are going to help some people who are listening to this podcast. But I close my show out by asking my guests the same 2 questions. One is, what's one parting piece of advice or wisdom you want to leave with our audience, and the second, what are the next steps they can take to learn more about you, working with you, or some of the things that you do?
Thank you. So, parting piece of advice, we talked a lot today about having a vision, letting that drive your priorities, looking for opportunities to delegate. But one thing that we didn't touch on was the importance of knowing your personal core values. getting clear on what matters most to you, and then letting those values also be an important driver in how you spend your time and how you make your decisions. And I would challenge you to ask yourself, open up your calendar and ask yourself, are my values reflected on the pages of my calendar this week? Am I spending time doing the things that truly matter most to me? And if the answer is yes, that's amazing. Keep it up. And if the answer is no, then it might be time to really reevaluate how you're spending your time so that you can make sure that your time and your values align. And then I would love to keep in touch. I would invite you to tune into my podcast. It's About Time. I have new episodes that drop every Monday wherever you listen to podcasts. And I would be thrilled if you want to dive deeper into time management by picking up a copy of my book, Time Management Essentials. You can grab it on Amazon. And if you head over to timemanagementessentials.com, and you can actually grab around $500 in bonuses that can help you implement exactly what you learn as you read Time Management Essentials.
I love that. And folks, as we always do, we will link all of this up in the show notes for this episode, which you can catch in the description right below in your podcast player or at profitwithlaw.com. And notice that we have our show, Profit with Law, and her show, It's About Time, are your weekly bookends. So Monday is hers. We're Thursday. You get to start your week with Anna. You get to end your week with Moshe, and we can work together to help you elevate into the best version of yourself. So check her show out as well. You may not know this, but we launched a brand new YouTube channel in March 2023. So we're about 4 months into this journey. We have over 100 videos posted there. We post the podcast recordings, but we also have exclusive content specifically for YouTube, as well as my team has been scouring thousands and thousands of hours of content that we have created. We've run 3 law firm growth summits with over 30 speakers in each one. We have over 400 episodes in our podcast, a ton of stuff that we've done, free webinars, free trainings, one-day workshops. And they are taking 60 to 90 second clips of absolute gold and turning them into YouTube shorts. So you want to make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Go to profitwithlaw.com/YouTube and just hit that subscribe button. Your YouTube app will tell you when we release new content. Go in there and binge. Go in there when you just have 90 seconds and just get a little dose of influence. And you're going to really appreciate it. We will catch you next Thursday when you tune back into the Profit with Law podcast with another amazing guest. Thank you, Anna, for your time. And folks, enjoy your weekend.